In this video, we will dive into the movie Sonic the Hedgehog. We will discuss the story, provide a clear plot summary, and explore the cast and characters. In addition, we will take a look at the film's box office performance and prediction. Finally, we will share reviews and personal reactions. So, let's get started. When approaching a film like Sonic the Hedgehog, it's worth taking a moment to appreciate why it deserves a thoughtful discussion in the first place. On the surface, it may appear to be just another light, family oriented adaptation of a well known video game property. But if you look a little closer, it becomes a surprisingly interesting case study in how modern Hollywood handles genre blending, audience expectation, and production challenges. From a genre perspective, the film sits as an intersection that is not always easy to navigate. It combines elements of action, comedy, and family entertainment. Three genres that often pull in different creative directions. Action demands energy and spectacle. Comedy relies on timing and tone. And family films require accessibility and emotional warmth. Balancing these elements without allowing one to overpower the other is a delicate task. What makes this film worth discussing is how consciously it tried to maintain that balance, aiming to appeal to multiple audience groups at once rather than commenting to a single tonal identity. This is where the role of the director Jeff Fowler becomes especially relevant. As a first-time feature film director, Fowler faced the challenge of bringing a globally recognized character into a live-action setting while maintaining a cohesive cinematic vision. His background in animation and visual effects is clearly reflected in the film's approach. There is a strong emphasis on visual clarity, movement, and rhythm, qualities that are essential when dealing with a character defined by speed. Even without dividing into narrative specifics, you can sense a director trying to translate an inherently kinetic concept into a format that works within the structure of a mainstream film. The production style for the red, why this movie is worth examining. It represents a hybrid model that blends CGI driven character with real world environment, a technique that has become increasingly common but still requires precision to execute effectively. The integration of digital element into live action footage is not just a technical challenge, it's also an artistic one. The film needs to ensure that the visual effects feel grounded enough to coexist with physical setting while still retaining the exaggerated, almost cartoon-like qualities that define its source material. What's particularly notable here is the film's responsiveness to audience feedback during production. Before its release, the design of the central character digital underwent a production. Before its release, the design of the central digital character underwent a significant redesign after widespread public criticism. This moment is more than just an interesting footnote. It highlights a shift into how studios interact with their audience in the digital age. The willingness to revisit and revise such a major visual component speak to the evolving relationship between creator and viewers, making the film an important example of audience influence production. In terms of overall aesthetic, the movie leans toward a clean, brightly lit visual palette, emphasizing clarity and accessibility over stylistic experimentation. This aligns well with its family-oriented goal, ensuring that the film remains visually engaging without becoming overwhelming. The pacing of the film too reflects a modern sensibility, quick, energetic, and designed to hold attention in an era where audiences are accustomed to constant stimulation. Ultimately, what makes Sonic the Hedgehog worth discussing is not just what it is, but what it represents. It stands at the crossroad of genre blending, digital production technique, and audience-driven creative decision. As a reviewer warming up this conversation, it's clear that the films offer more than simple entertainment. It provides insight into how contemporary cinema adopts, evolves, and responds to the representation of a global audience. A closer look at the production budget of the film reveals a mid-range financial strategy that reflects both caution and calculated investment. The film's estimated production cost is generally reported to be around $85 to $90 million, placing it in a category that is neither lower budget nor among the highest tier blockbuster expenditure. This positioning is significant because it suggests a measured approach by the studios, particularly given the uncertainties often associated with adapting video games properties into live action films. From a cost perspective, this budget indicated a deliberate attempt to balance technical ambition with financial risk management. Film in the action, adventure, and family genres frequently exceed $150 million, especially when they rely heavily on visual effects. In contrast, this project operated within a more controlled financial framework. The lower ceiling likely reflects both the studio's initial expectation and the historical unpredictability of video game adaptation, which have not always performed consistently at the box office. Resource allocation within the film appeared to prioritize visual effect and post-production processes. A significant portion of the budget would have been directed towards CGI development, particularly for the creation and animation of the central digital characters. These include molding, rendering, motion work, and compositioning, each of which requires specialized team and extended production timeline. The complexity increased further due to redesign phase that occur after the initial trailer release. Revising a major visual component at that stage would have required additional financial resources, likely pushing post-production costs higher than originally planned. Another area of expenditure involved the integration of CGI with live-action environment. This hybrid production style required careful coordination between on-set filming and digital enhancement. Costs associated with this process include green screen setup, tracking system, light adjustments, and extensive post-production editing. These technical requirements contribute significantly to the overall budget, even if they are less immediately visible than large-scale action sequences. In contrast, spending on physical sets and location appear relatively restrained. Much of the film is grounded in real-world environment, which helps limit the need for elaborate set construction. This approach reduces overhead costs while still approaching a believable visual backdrop. Similarly, the casting choices suggest a balanced allocation of funds. While the film features recognizable factors, it does not rely on an ensemble of extremely high-cost performance, allowing more of the budget to be directed toward technical execution rather than salaries. Marketing and promotional expenses, while not included in the production budget itself, also play an indirect role in shaping financial decisions. Given the redesign effort and the need to rebuild audience confidence, promotional spending was likely substantial. However, the production budget remained focused on the tangible creation of the films rather than its distribution strategy. When compared to the similar film, this film is occupy a middle ground. For example, Detective Pikachu had a higher estimated budget, reportedly around $150 million, reflecting a greater emphasis on large-scale visual world building and multiple CGI characters. On the other end of the spectrum, smaller family-oriented films with limited effect often operate below $50 million. This places Sonic's budget in a range that supports technical quality without fully committing to blockbuster level financial exposure. This comparative positioning highlights a strategic decision: invest enough to achieve credible visual effect on broad audience appeal, but avoid the financial risk associated with higher budget production. The outcome is a film that relies on efficient resource management rather than excessive spending. It demonstrates how studios can allocate funds selectively, prioritizing areas that directly impact audience perception, such as visual fluidity and integration, while maintaining control over less critical cost center. Overall, the production budget of the film reflects a pragmatic approach. It underscores the balance between ambition and restraint, where financial resources are directed toward key technical elements while avoiding unnecessary expansion. This major allocation provides insight in how studios approach projects that carry both strong brand recognition and a degree of market uncertainty. The genre identity of the film can be best described as a carefully balanced fusion of action, comedy, and family entertainment. Rather than commenting fully to one genre, the films operate in a hybrid space where each element supports the other. This blending is not accidental, it reflects a broader trend in contemporary filmmaking where accessibility across age group is prioritized. The result is a tone that remains consistently approachable while still incorporating moments of energy and spectacle. Atmospherically, the film leans toward a bright and inviting visual environment. The color palette is clean and vibrant, emphasizing clarity over stylistic complexity. This choice reinforces family friendly positioning, creating a setting that feels safe, energetic, and easy to engage with. There is a little reliance on shadow, muted tones, or visual ambiguity. Instead, the atmosphere is constructed to be immediately readable, allowing viewers to focus on movement and interaction rather than interpreting layers visual symbolism. Pacing plays a crucial role in shaping the film's overall mood. The rhythm is fast but not overwhelming, sees a structure to move quickly, maintaining a sense of momentum that aligns with the film's action-oriented aspects. However, this speed is moderated by moments of pause that prevent fatigue. The editing style avoids lingering too long on any single beat, favoring a steady forward motion. This approach ensures that the films remain engaging for younger audience while still holding the attention of older viewers who expect a certain level of narrative efficiency. In terms of tone, the film adopts a light and playful sensibility. Comedy is woven into the fabric of the experience, often emerging through timing, visual exaggeration, and dialogue-driven humor. The comedic style leans toward broad appeal rather than niche or highly sophisticated form of humor. This inclusivity is central to the film's identity, ensuring that it resonates across different age groups and cultural contexts. At the same time, the tone avoids becoming overly chaotic or abstract, maintaining a level of restraint that keeps the experience cohesive. Stylistically, the film reflects a modern approach to hybrid filmmaking, combining live action elements with computer generated imagery in a seamless manner. This integration is essential to the film's genre identity, as it allows exaggerated high energy element to coexist within a recognizable real world framework. The visual effects are designed not just for spectacle but for consistency, ensuring that the digital component align with the physical environment. This creates a unified aesthetic that supports immersion rather than drawing attention to technical contrast. The influence of director Jeff Fowler is evident in the film's emphasis on movement and visual clarity. His background in animation informed the way sequences are structured with a focus on rhythm and fluidity. This is particularly noticeable in how action is staged not as chaotic bursts but as a controlled display of motion that is easy to follow. The camera work complements this approach, offering prioritizing smooth tracking and clear framing over rapid disorientated cuts. Another defining aspect of the film's mood is its essential accessibility. While it does not aim for deep or complex emotional exploration, it maintains a consistent sense of warmth. This warmth is reinforced through its tonal stability. There are no abrupt shifts into darker or more intense territory. Instead, the film sustains a steady emotional baseline that aligns with its family-oriented goals. When compared to the similar genre blends such as Detective Pikachu, the film adopts a slightly more straightforward stylistic approach. When some hybrid film experiment with real layer world building or tonal contrast, this one prioritizes simplicity and immediacy. This decision enhances accessibility but also limited stylistic depth. This decision enhances accessibility but also limited stylistic depth. Overall, the genre and the mood of the film are defined by clarity, energy, and consistency. It is a film that understands its audience and shapes its atmosphere. Consistency. It is a film that understands its audience and shapes its atmosphere accordingly, favoring brightness over darkness, momentum over stillness, and humor over intensity. These choices collectively create an experience that is cohesive, approachable, and aligned with the expectation of a broad, family oriented viewership. Before sitting down to watch the film, most audiences carry a fairly distinct set of expectations shaped by the film's origin, marketing, and genre positioning. These expectations vary across viewers' demographic, but they tend to converge around a few key ideas: accessibility, entertainment value, and a certain level of visual and tonal familiarity. For younger viewers and families, the expectation is relatively straightforward. This demographic typically anticipate a light, energetic film that is easy to follow and visually engaging. The presence of bright color, fast movement, and a humorous tone suggests an experience designed to hold attention without requiring deep concentration. Parents in particularly often approach such film with the expectation that the content will remain appropriate for children while still offering enough entertainment to avoid feeling overly simplistic. In this sense, the film is expected to function as a sheer viewing experience, something that can appeal across age group without alienating either side. Teenagers and young adults, especially those who grew up with video games, bring a slightly different perspective for them. The expectation is tied not just to entertainment but to adaptation quality. Video game fans are often cautious when approaching film adaptation as the track record of the genre has been inconsistent. There is an underlying hope that the film will respect its source material in tone and aesthetic even if it does not replicate it directly. This group tend to look for stylistic authenticity, whether the film captured the spirit of its origin rather than simply using the name for recognition. At the same time, general action comedy audience, those who may not have a strong connection to the original property, approach the film with expectation shaped more by genre than by brand. For those viewers, the film is likely to be seen as a part of a broader category of fast-paced, humor-driven entertainment. Comparison may naturally arise with films like Detective Pikachu, where a mix of CGI character and live-action setting create a similar viewing framework. These audiences typically expect a balance between spectacle and comedy with a rhythm that keeps the experience engaging without becoming overly demanding. Another important factor influencing audience expectation is the film's marketing and pre-release history. The widely discussed redesign of the central character had a noticeable impact on public perception. For many viewers, this created an expectation of responsiveness and assumption that the final product would be more aligned with audience preferences. This kind of behind the scene narrative can subtly shape how people approach the film, leading them to expect a more polished or carefully considered result than they might otherwise anticipate. In terms of anticipated themes, most viewers are likely to expect familiar, broadly appealing ideas rather than complex or challenging subject matter. Family oriented action comedies often emphasize universal concepts such as connection, belonging, or personal growth. While audience may not consciously analyze this expectation before watching, they still play a role in shaping overall perception. There is an implicit understanding that the films will aim for emotional accessibility rather than depth, offering moments of warmth without dabbling into heavier territory. Genre fans, particularly those who enjoy action comedy hybrid, often look for specific tonal balance. They expect the film to deliver both energy and humor in a way that feels cohesive. Too much emphasis on action can make the film feel energetic, generic, while too much focus on comedy can reduce its sense of momentum. The expectation, therefore, is not perfection but consistency, a steady rhythm that maintain engagement throughout. It is also worth noting that expectations for visual effects are relatively high even among casual viewer. The integration of CGI into live action environment has been standard in modern filmmaking. Our audience have developed a baseline for what they consider acceptable quality. For a film like this, viewers generally expect smooth, believable animation that does not disrupt immersion. While they may not analyze the technical details, they are quick to notice inconsistencies. Ultimately, audience expectations for the films are shaped by a combination of genre familiarity, brand recognition, and cultural context. Whether approaching it as a family outing, a nostalgic revisit, or a casual entertainment option, viewers tend to anticipate a film that is energetic, accessible, and visually coherent. These expectations do not demand innovation, but they do require competence and assurance that the film will deliver a cohesive and enjoyable experience within its chosen style. When considering the target audience of the film, it becomes clear that the film is designed with a broad, multi-layer viewership in mind. Though certain groups are more directly prioritized than others, the structure, tone, and stylistic approach all point toward a primary focus on accessibility, with particular emphasis on younger audience and family viewing environment. From an age group perspective, the film is most clearly aimed at children and early teenagers. Its pacing, visual clarity, and moral simplicity are all calibrated to suit viewers who prefer straightforward, engaging entertainment without the need for complex interpretation. The humor style, which leans toward physical comedy and easily recognizable punchline, is specifically effective for younger viewers who respond well to immediate, visible form of amusement. At the same time, the film avoids elements that might be overly intense or emotionally heavy, ensuring that it remains comfortable for a wide age range within the film's category. However, limiting the film solely to children would overlook an important secondary audience, young adults who have some familiarity with gaming culture. For this group, the appeal is not just about entertainment but also about recognition and stylistic continuity. While the film does not rely heavily on deep references or insider knowledge, it still carries a sense of identity that resonates with those who appreciate fast-paced, visually driven experience. This makes it accessible to viewers who may not be actively seeking a family movie but are open to light genre-based entertainment. Another key segment of the target audience include casual viewers who enjoy action comedy hybrid. These individuals are typically less concerned with the film's origin and more interested in its ability to deliver a balanced viewing experience. For them, the appeal lies in the combination of movement, humor, and visual spectacle. The film genre positioning, aligning it with other accessible mainstream productions such as Detective Pikachu, which similarly target a wide demographic through a mix of familiarity and entertainment value. This comparison highlights how the film fits into a broader category of content designed for general assumption rather than niche appeal. In terms of interest, the film caters strongly to viewers who enjoy visually dynamic content. The emphasis on speed, motion, and energetic presentation make it particularly appealing to those who prefer film that maintain a steady level of activity. Audience who appreciate animation even within a live action framework are also likely to find the films engaging. The integration of CGI element is not presented as a novelty but as a core part of viewing experience, suggesting that the film expects its audience to be comfortable with digitally enhanced storytelling. Gender preferences play a significant role in defining the film's audience. Those who gravitate toward action comedy with a light tone are the most natural fit. The film's avoid darker or more introspective elements, positioning itself firmly with a realm of entertainment that prioritizes enjoyment over depth. This makes it particularly suitable for viewers who are looking for a relaxed, low commitment experience rather than something that demands sustained emotional or intellectual engagement. Families represent perhaps the most important audience category. The film is structured to function effectively in a shared viewing setting where different age groups watch together. This requires a careful balance, enough simplicity to engage children but enough polish and pacing to keep adult interesting. The absence of overly complex theme or challenging content ensure that the films remain broadly accessible while its technical execution provides a level of quality that prevents it from feeling trivial. It is also worth noting that the film is less suited to viewers who prioritize narrative depth, stylistic experimentation, or thematic complexity. Those who prefer slow-paced dramas, intricate storytelling, or highly original thematic approaches may find the film's focus on accessibility limiting. This does not indicate a weakness as much as a clear definition of intent. The film is designed to meet the expectation of a specific kind of audience rather than to challenge or define genre boundaries. Ultimately, the target audience of the films can be understood as a spectrum anchored by younger viewers and supported by families and casual genre fans. Its appeal lies in its ability to remain approachable while still offering enough energy and visual engagement to sustain interest across different age groups. By prioritizing clarity, consistency, and broad entertainment value, the film's position itself as a reliable option for viewing seeking a straightforward and enjoyable cinematic experience. The emotional experience offered by the film is shaped less by intensity or deep depth and more by consistency, accessibility, and tonal clarity rather than aiming to provoke strong or challenging emotional reaction. The film is designed to create a steady, pleasant engagement that aligns with its family-oriented identity. The emphasis is on maintaining a mood that feels inviting, entertaining, energetic, and emotionally safe for a wide range of viewers. At its core, the films operate within a light and upbeat emotional register. The overall mood is optimistic, rarely straying into territory that might feel overwhelming or unsettling. This approach ensures that the viewing experience remains comfortable, particularly for younger audience who benefit from emotional predictability. The film's atmosphere supports this by maintaining a sense of forward momentum and visual brightness, which reinforce feeling of excitement without dipping into tension. Even when the tone shifts slightly, it does so within controlled boundaries, avoiding sharp contrasts that could disrupt the viewer's emotional rhythm. A significant part of the emotional appeal lies in its use of humor. Comedy functions as a stabilizing force, shaping how audience process the film's tone. The humor is accessible and frequent, designed to generate consistent amusement rather than occasional bursts of laughter. This creates a relaxed viewing environment where the audience is encouraged to enjoy the experience without overanalyzing it. The comedic style leans toward exaggeration and timing, contributing to a sense of playfulness that defines much of the film's emotional texture. In terms of thematic presence, the film leans on broadly relatable ideas rather than complex or layered concepts. The themes are presenting in a way that prioritizes clarity and universality, allowing audiences of different age to connect with them without difficulty. These thematic elements are not intended to challenge the viewers but rather to reinforce familiar emotional patterns that feel reassuring. This approach aligns with the expectation of mainstream family entertainment where emotional resonance is achieved through simplicity rather than depth. The intended emotional impact can be described as a gentle and communicative rather than immediate or intense. Instead of building toward a powerful emotional peak, the film focuses on maintaining a consistent sense of engagement. Viewers are meant to live with a feeling of satisfaction, light entertainment rather than profound reflection. This does not diminish the film's effectiveness, rather it highlights its specific goal of providing a reliable and approachable emotional experience. The pacing contributes significantly to how these emotions are delivered. A steady rhythm ensures that the audience remain engaged without becoming overwhelmed. Quick transition between moment of activity and quieter interval helps sustain interest while also allowing brief period of emotional reset. This balance prevent fatigue and keep the overall tone cohesive. The film avoid lingering too long in any single emotional state, which help maintain its accessibility across different age groups. When compared to the similar films such as Detective Pikachu, the emotional experience here is somewhat more straightforward, while some hybrid films experiment with tonal contrast or deeper emotional undertone. This one prioritizes consistency above all else. The result is an experience that feels stable and predictable in a positive sense. Viewers generally know what kind of emotional journey they are on, and the films deliver on that expectation without significant deviation. Another notable aspect of the emotional design is its emphasis on inclusivity. The film is structured to ensure that different type of viewers can find something to connect with, whether different humor, visual energy, or general atmosphere. This broad appeal is achieved by avoiding extreme, neither overly dramatic or excessively subdued, neither too fast nor too slow. The emotional tone remains centered, making it accessible without becoming bland. Ultimately, the emotional experience of the film is defined by its intention to entertain in a way that feel effortless and reassuring. It does not seek to leave a lasting emotional imprint through complexity or intensity, but rather to provide a cohesive and enjoyable journey that aligns with audience expectation. The film's success in this regard depends on its ability to maintain balance between humor and action, movement and pose, excitement and calm, resulting in an experience that is both engaging and comfortably familiar. At its core, the films operate on a set of ideas that are both simple and widely recognizable, yet adaptable enough to resonate across different audience groups. Rather than presenting a complex or layered philosophical framework, the film builds its foundation on accessible themes that emphasize emotional clarity and universal appeal. These ideas are expressed through tone, structure, and stylistic choice rather than through intricate narrative construction. One of the most central themes is the concept of belonging. The film explores in an abstract sense what it means to seek connection with an unfamiliar environment. This idea is not presenting as a heavy or introspective journey, but as a consistent undercurrent that shapes the emotional direction of the experience. The notion of finding a place socially, emotionally, or even symbolically serve as a guiding principle that informs the film's overall message. It reflects a broader human concern, the desire to be seen and understood and expected without the need for transformation into something else. Closely tied to this is the theme of identity. The film suggests that identity is not something that must be concealed or altered to fit external expectation, but rather something that can coexist with the world when approached with openness. This is experienced in a way that avoids complexity, focusing instead on the reassurance that individuality can be maintained without isolation. The message here is not about conflict between self and society, but not about the possibility of alignment between the two. Another key idea embedded within the film is the value of connection over isolation. In a broader conceptual sense, the film contrasts independence with interdependence, not as opposing force but as complementary state. While autonomy is acknowledged as important, it is not positioned as sufficient on its own. The film leans toward the idea that meaningful interaction enhance rather than diminish personal identity. This perspective aligns with its family-oriented tone, reinforcing the importance of relationships without framing them as burden or obligation. The theme of interest also plays a subtitle but significant role in shaping the film's conceptual framework. Trust is presented as something that develops gradually, requiring openness and a willingness to engage with uncertainty. Rather than being portrayed as a dramatic or high-stake element, it is integrated into the film's emotional baseline. contributing to a sense of stability and reassurance. This understating approach allows the theme to remain accessible without becoming overly simplistic. In terms of its broader message, the film emphasizes positivity and forward momentum. It avoids dabbling on conflict and internal struggle, instead focusing on the idea that challenges can be approached with optimism. This does not mean that difficulty is ignored, but rather than it is formed in a way that maintains the film's overall tonal consistency. The message is clear: progress is possible without losing one's sense of self, and movement, both literal and metaphorical, is a natural part of growth. Stylistically, these themes are reinforced through a sense of energy and motion. The film's emphasis on mood and dynamism can be interpreted as a metaphor for change and adaptability. Movement becomes not just a visual element but a conceptual one, representing the idea that staying in motion allows for evaluation and discovery. This aligns with the film's broader focus on momentum, suggesting that stagnation is less desirable than continuous engagement with the world. When compared to the similar films such as Dictative Pikachu, the core idea here is notably more streamlined. When some films in this genre experiment with layered themes or tonal contrast, this one prioritizes clarity and immediacy. The advantage of this approach is that it makes the films highly accessible. Audience is not required to interpret or analyze deeply in order to understand its message. However, this simplicity also limits the potential for more nuanced exploration, keeping the films firmly with the boundaries of mainstream family entertainment. Another aspect worth noting is the film emphasis on emotional equilibrium. It does not seek to challenge the viewers with ambiguity or moral complexity. Instead, it represents a worldview that is stable and reassuring, where positive outcomes are aligned with openness, trust, and connection. This reflects a broader trend in family oriented cinema, where the goal is not to provoke debate but to reinforce wide accepting values in a way that feels engaging and relevant. Ultimately, the core idea of the film can be understood as a celebration of connection, identity, and forward movement. It frames these concepts in a way that is easy to grasp and emotionally consistent, ensuring that the films remain approachable for a diverse audience. While it does not aim for thematic depth or complexity, it succeeds in presenting a cohesive set of ideas that align with its tone and purpose. The result is a story concept that prioritizes clarity, positivity, and inclusivity, offering an experience that is both familiar and reassuring without attempting to redefine the boundaries of its genre. The central conflict in this film is best understood not as a simple isolated struggle but as a layered tension between opposing forces that operate on both external and internal level. Rather than relying on intricate plotting, the films build in its conflict around clear, accessible contrast: control versus freedom, isolation versus connection, and individuality versus external pressure. These oppositions form the backbone of the film's dramatic structure, even when they are presenting in a simplified, audience friendly manner. At the heart of the conflict lies a fundamental imbalance between power and control. One side represents a force that seeks to understand, contain, and ultimately dominate what it perceives as unpredictable or uncontrollable. This perspective is rooted in a desire for order, while anything outside established norms becomes something to be managed or restricted. On the other side is a force that embodies spontaneity, movement, and independence, qualities that resist confinement and challenge rigid system. The tension between these two approaches create a resistant sense of opposition, even when it is expressed in a light or comedic tone. This dynamic introduces a broader moral dilemma where difference should be embraced or regulated. The film leans toward a perspective that values acceptance, but it does not ignore the underlying discomfort that often occupy the unfamiliars. The conflict arises from the gap between these two responses, the instant to welcome versus the instant to control. This is not presenting as a deeply philosophical debate, but rather as an accessible representation of a common social tension, one that audience can recognize without needing extensive context. Another important layer of the conflict involves the challenge of coexistence. The films explore in abstract terms what it means for fundamentally different entities or perspectives to share the same space. This challenge is not framed as impossible, but it does require adjustment and compromise. The tension emerges from the difficulty of balancing these differences without erasing them. There is an implicit question at play, and individuality be maintained within a system that tend to favor uniformity. The film suggests that this balance is achievable but not without effort. Internal tension also plays a subtitle role in shaping the central conflict. While the film does not emphasize psychological complexity, it still acknowledges the strain that comes from navigating between opposing desire, the pull between independence and connection. For example, create a form of internal friction. On one hand, there is a desire to remain self-reliant and unrestricted. On the other hand, there is a recognition that meaningful interaction that require vulnerability and trust. This duality adds depth to the conflict, even if it is presented in a simplified manner. The pacing and the tone of the film influence how this conflict is experienced because the film maintains a light and energetic atmosphere. The tension never becomes overwhelming. Instead, it is sustained at a level that keeps the audience engaged without creating discomfort. This approach aligns with the film's broader goal of accessibility, ensuring that the conflict remains clear and understandable for viewers of all ages. The stakes are present, but they are moderated in a way that prioritizes engagement over intensity. In comparison to similar genre films such as Detective Pikachu, the central conflict here is more streamlined and self-clear. While some films introduce multiple overlapping tension or moral ambiguities, this one focuses on a primary set of oppositions that are easy to follow. This simplicity allows the film to maintain a consistent tone, but it also limits the scope of its conflict. The moral dilemmas are clear, but they are not deeply explored or challenged. Another aspect of the conflict is its reliance on contrast rather than ambiguity. The opposing forces are clearly defined, leaving the little room for moral uncertainty. This clarity supports the film's family-oriented design as it ensures that the audience can relate it to the identity, the depth, the nature of the tension without needing to interpret complex motivation. However, it also means that the conflict operates within familiar boundaries, avoiding the kind of unpredictability that might create a more nuanced experience. Ultimately, the central conflict in this film revolves around the challenge of reconciling differences within a structured world. It examines how contrasting values, freedom and control, individuality and conformity interact and clash while maintaining a tone that remains accessible and engaging. The film does not seek to complicate these ideas but rather to present them in a way that is clear, consistent, and aligned with them. With its overall style, the result is a conflict that is easy to understand and emotionally approachable, even if it does not push beyond the convention of its genre. The thematic framework of the film is built on a collection of accessible, broadly relatable ideas that prioritize clarity over complexity. While the film does not attempt to construct a dense or a layered philosophical structure, it still engages with a range of themes that interact with ethical question, emotional development, and subtitle culture reflection. These themes are presented in a way that align with the film's family-oriented tones, ensuring that they remain understandable while still offering some degree of interpretative depth. One of the most prominent themes is the ethical question surrounding control versus acceptance. The film raises in a indirect way the issues of how society responds to what it perceive as different or unfamiliar. On one side of this tension is the impulse to regulate, categorize, or contain anything that fall outside established norms. On the other side is the idea that difference can be integrated and appreciated without being diminished. This contrast reflects a broader ethical debate about authenticity and autonomy, while whether power should be used to reinforce conformity or to create space for diversity. The film does not present it as a complex moral dilemma with competing justification. Instead, it leans toward a clear preferences for acceptance, reinforcing a value system that is consistent with mainstream family storytelling. Closely connected to this is the theme of identity and self-acceptance. The film suggests that identity is not something that need to be reshaped to meet external expectation, but rather something that can coexist with the surrounding environment. This idea is expressed through a simplified emotional arc that emphasizes confidence and self-recognition. The message is reassuring: individuality is not a problem to be solved, but a quality to be embraced. While this theme is not explored in a deeply nuanced way, it remains external to the film's emotional structure, providing a foundation for its overall tone of positivity and inclusivity. Another significant theme involves the value of connection and interpersonal trust. The film presents relationship not as a source of conflict but as mechanism for growth and stability. This perspective aligns with the broader cultural emphasis on cooperation and mutual support. The emotional arc associated with this theme is gradual rather than dramatic, focusing on the development of trust as a progress rather than a single transformative moment. This approach keeps the theme accessible while still allowing it to resonate across different age groups. The concept of isolation versus belonging also plays an important role. The film touches on the emotional experience of being disconnected from others and the desire to find a sense of play. This is not presented in a heavy introspective manner, but it still contributes to the film's underlying emotional tone. The idea that belonging can be achieved without sacrificing individuality, reinforcing the film's broader message of balance between independence and connection between self and community. From a cultural perspective, the film reflects contemporary attitude toward inclusivity and adaptation. It operates within a framework that values openness and flexibility, suggesting that system and environment can adjust to accommodate difference rather than rejecting it. This aligns it with modern culture narrative that emphasize diversity and acceptance as positive necessity qualities. The film's approach to these ideas is subtle and non-confrontational, avoiding direct commentary while still aligning with prevailing social values. Another theme worth noting is the relationship between technology and control. While not deeply explored, the film hints at the idea that technological advancement can be used either as a tool for understanding now or as a mean of domination. This introduces a mild ethical consideration about the role of innovation in shaping power dynamic. However, this theme remains secondary to the film's primary focus on emotional and interpersonal ideas. When compared to the similar films such as Detective Pikachu, the thematic structure here is more streamlined and less layered. While some films attempt to weave multiple complex ideas into their narrative, this one prioritizes clarity and cohesion. The advantage of its approach is that it makes the theme immediately recognizable and easy to engage with. The limitation, however, is that it leaves little room for ambiguity or deeper exploration. Emotionally, the film maintains a consistent trajectory that supports its thematic goal. The emotional arcs are designed to be straightforward, reinforcing the central ideas without introducing significant complication. This consistency helps maintain the film's tone, ensuring that the themes feel integrated rather than imposed. The result is an experience that feels cohesive even if does not challenge the viewer to think beyond its established framework. Ultimately, the theme explored in this film revolve around acceptance, identity, connection, and balance. These ideas are presented in a way that prioritizes accessibility and emotional clarity, making them suitable for a wide audience. While the film does not delve into complex ethical debates or cultural critique, it still engages with concepts that are relevant and widely understood. Its thematic strength lies not in depth but in its ability to communicate familiar ideas in a consistent and approachable manner, reinforcing values that resonate with the context of contemporary family entertainment. The emotional connection created by the film relies less on intensity or dramatic weight and more on consistency, familiarity, and ease of engagement. Rather than pushing viewer through a deeply layered emotional journey, the film establishes a steady and approachable mood that invites audience to connect in a relaxed, almost effortless way. This approach is particularly reflected for a broad audience as it minimizes emotional barrier and allows different viewers to engage at their own level. At the level of the mood, the film maintains a tone that is largely upbeat and reassuring. This consistency plays a crucial role in how viewers form an emotional bond with the material. Instead of introducing sharp tonal shift or moment of prolonged tension, the film sustains a balanced atmosphere where energy and calm coexist. This creates a sense of emotional safety. Viewers are not required to brace themselves for sudden intensity, which make the experience more inviting, especially for younger audience. The brightness of the visual style and rhythmic pacing reinforces this mood, ensuring that the emotional environment remains stable throughout. The film themes further strengthen this connection by focusing on ideas that are universally recognizable. Concepts such as belonging, identity, and connection are presented in a way that feel immediate and relatable without requiring deep analysis. These themes function as emotional anchor, allowing viewers to project their own experience onto the film. Because the themes are not overly specific or complex, they remain open to interpretations, making it easier for different audience members to find personal meaning to them. This openness is a key factor in how the film establishes its emotional reach. Another important element in shaping the viewer experience is the films rely on humor as a connective tool. Comedy here is not just as an added feature, it is central to how the audience engage emotionally. The humor is frequent and accessible, creating a continuous sense of enjoyment that keeps viewer involved. This lightness reduces emotional distance, making the films feel more approachable. Instead of demanding a strong emotional investment, it encourages a gentle, ongoing connection that built through repetition and familiarity. The pacing of the film also contributes significantly to its emotional accessibility. By maintaining a steady rhythm, the films avoid overwhelming the audience while still keeping them engaged. Moments of activity are balanced with brief pauses, allowing viewers to process what they are experiencing without feeling rushed. This controlled pacing supports the overall mood, ensuring that the emotional tone remains consistent and easy to follow. It also helps sustain attention, particularly for viewers who may prefer a more dynamic viewer experience. When considering the broader viewer experience, it becomes clear that the film is designed to be inclusive. It does not rely on niche experience or complex emotional cues that might exclude certain audience. Instead, it uses widely understood emotional signal, humor, warmth, and a sense of forward movement to create a shared experience. This inclusivity is one of the film's defining strengths as it allows viewers from different backgrounds and age group to connect with it in a similar way. In comparison to films like Detective Pikachu, which something introduced slightly more layered emotional undertone, the emotional connection here is more straightforward. This simplicity can be seen as both an advantage and a limitation. On one hand, it ensures that the films remain easy to engage with, requiring little effort from the viewers. On the other hand, it means that the emotional impact may not linger as strongly after the viewing experience, and the connection is immediate and pleasant but not necessarily profound. The film also benefits from its emphasis on emotional predictability. While unpredictability can enhance engagement in some contexts, here the stable emotional framework works in favor of accessibility. Viewers generally know what kind of experience they are having at any given moment, which reduces uncertainty and allow them to remain comfortably immersed. This predictability aligns with the expectation of family-oriented entertainment, where consistency is often more important than surprise. Ultimately, the emotional connection of the film is built on a foundation of clarity, warmth, and steady engagement. It does not attempt to challenge the viewers or provoke deep reflection, but rather to create a cohesive and enjoyable emotional experience that keeps natural and undemanding. By combining an immediate move with the universally relatable theme and careful control pace, the film succeed in forming a connection that is broad, accessible, and consistently engaging, even if it remains with the boundaries of familiar storytelling convention. In this film, the character design follow a familiar but effective framework built around recognizable archetype and clearly defined personality trait rather than pursuing complexity or ambiguity. The film opts for clarity, ensuring that each central figure fulfill a distinct role within the overall structure. This approach aligns with its genre and audience expectation, where accessibility and immediate recognition are prioritized over layer characterization. The main character can be understood as a variation of the outsider archetype, a defined figure by contrast with the surrounding world. This archetype is constructed through a combination of high energy, impulsiveness, emotional openness. The personality trait associated with this role emphasizes enthusiasm and spontaneity, often balanced by an underlying sense of vulnerability. What makes this characterization effective is its consistency, that traits are not present as evolving complexity but as stable qualities that shape how the character interacts with the environment. This predictability allows audience to quickly form an emotional connection without needing extensive development or explanation. From a reviewer perspective, this central characterization functions more as a symbolic representation than as a deeply explored individual. The emphasis is on what the character represents, movement, differences, and individuality rather than on integrate psychological depth. There is a deliberate stylistic choice as it keeps the tone aligned with the film's broader goal. However, it also means that the character remains within the boundaries of a well-established tentpole, offering familiarity rather than innovation. Alongside this, the supporting character embody the grounded counterpart archetype. This type of character is defined by stability, restraint, and a sense of normalcy. The personality traits here are measure and control, often serving as a counterbalance to be more energetic central figure. This contrast is essential as it creates a dynamic interplay between movement and stillness, unpredictability and order. The effectiveness of this archetype lies in its reliability. It provides a point of reference that helps anchor the film's tone from an analytical standpoint. This pairing of contrasting archetypes is a common strategy in action, comedy, and family film. It allows for a clear division of roles while maintaining a sense of balance. The grounded character does not need to undergo significant transformation. Instead, their primary function is to stabilize the overall dynamic. This reinforces the film's emphasis on accessibility, as viewers can easily understand the relationship between these rules without needing to interpret subtitle cues. The antagonistic main character represents another well-established archetype, the figure of control and intellect. This character is defined by prescient confidence and a strong sense of superiority. The personality traits associated with this role often include arrogance, obsession with order, and reliance on logic over emotion. Unlike more nosed antagonists, this archetype is intentionally exaggerated, creating a clear and immediate contrast with the central figure. In viewing this characterization, it becomes evident that the antagonist functions less as a complex individual and more as a thematic counterpoint. The traits are amplified to the point where they become almost stylized, contributing to the film's overall tone. This exaggeration aligns with the comedic element of the film, ensuring that the character remain engaging without becoming threatening in a way that might disrupt the family-friendly atmosphere. When comparing these character types to those found in similar films such as Detective Pikachu, the similarities are clear. Both films rely on recognizable archetypes that prioritize clarity over depth. However, this film takes a slightly more streamlined approach, reducing the complexity of its character in favor of maintaining a consistent tone. This design enhances accessibility but limits the potential for deeper emotional exploration. Another aspect worth noting is the absence of significant moral ambiguity. The characters are defined and clear down with their traits line closely with their role. This lack of ambiguity supports the film's overall structure, ensuring that the audience can quickly understand each character function. While this may reduce the opportunity for nose interpretation, it reinforces the film's commitment to straightforward storytelling. Ultimately, the character design in this film is shaped by its intent to entertain a broad audience. The use of familiar archetype, outsider, grounded counterpoint, and a control antagonist create a framework that is easy to follow and emotionally accessible. The personality traits are consistent and clearly defined, allowing the film to maintain a cohesive tone without requiring extensive development. From a reviewer perspective, this approach is effective within its context, even if it does not push beyond the convention of its genre. In this film, the acting performance play a crucial role in shaping the film's emotional tone, even within a structure that leans towards simplicity and accessibility. Because the film blends live action with a heavily digital presence, the performers are tasked with creating a sense of warmth and believability that bridge that gap. The result is a set of performances that prioritize energy, timing, and emotional clarity over subtlety or dramatic depth. Starting with the lead actor, Ben Schwartz deliver a voice performance that is defined by enthusiasm and expressive rhythm. His approach relies heavily on vocal energy, quick pacing, tonal variation, and sense of spontaneity that keep the character feeling lively and present. Emotionally, the performance lean into openness, making it easy for audience to connect without requiring layered interpretation. There is a deliberate sense of exaggeration in the delivery which align well with the film's comedic and animated sensibilities. Rather than striving for realism, the performance embraced stylization, creating an emotional tone that is immediate and engaging. In contrast, James Marsden, representing the human side of the lead actor, bring a grounded presence that stabilizes the film's overall emotional dynamic. His performance is understanding compared to the vocal energy of his co-star, relying on natural delivery and controlled expression. This balance is important. It prevents the films from becoming overly chaotic while still allowing space for humor and warmth. Marston's performance feels approachable and familiar, which helps anchor the more exaggerated elements around him. Emotionally, he conveys a sincerity without overplaying it, maintaining a tone that is consistent with the film's accessible style. The standout present with the supporting cast is James Carrey, whose performance style that draw from his earlier comedic work. His delivery is characterized by bold physicality, sharp timing, and a willingness to push expression beyond natural limit. Emotionally, this creates a sense of unpredictability and playfulness, adding a layer of contrast to the otherwise steady tone of the film. While the performance is intentionally exaggerated, it remains controlled enough to fit within the film's overall framework. It does not aim for realism, instead, it prioritizes entertainment value and stylistic presence. From an emotional standpoint, the chemistry between the lead actor is one of the film's more effective elements. The interplay between vocal performance and live action acting required careful coordination, and the film manages to create a sense of coherence despite the technical challenges. The contrast between high energy expression and grounded reaction form the basis of this chemistry, allowing the performance to complement rather than compete with each other. This dynamic helps maintain the film's tone, ensuring that the emotional experience feels balanced rather than uneven. The supporting cast contribute to this balance by maintaining a consistent level of performance that aligns with the film style. There is a noticeable emphasis on clarity. Each performance is easy to read with emotions presented in a direct and accessible manner. This approach avoids ambiguity, ensuring that the audience can quickly understand the emotional intent behind each interaction. While this limits the potential for subtlety, it reinforces the film's commitment to broad appeal. When compared to the similar films such as Detective Pikachu, the performance here feels slightly more exaggerated and less restrained. This difference reflects a stylistic choice rather than a limitation. The films lean into a more overtly comedic tone, allowing actors greater freedom to amplify their expression. This creates a viewing experience that is more immediately engaging through perhaps less noise in its emotional impact. Another important aspect of the performance is their consistency. None of the actor deviates significantly from the established tone, which help maintain a cohesive emotional environment. This consistency is particularly important in a film that rely on a mix of live action and digital elements, as it ensures that the performance feel unified rather than disjointed. Ultimately, the acting in this film is designed to support a specific kind of emotional experience, one that is lively, approachable, and easy to engage with. The lead actor bring contrasting energies that create balance. The supporting cast add texture and variation, and the overall chemistry ensure that the films remain cohesive. While the performance may not aim for depth or complexity, they succeed in delivering a consistent and emotionally accessible experience that align with the film's broader goal. When evaluating realism and depth in this film, it becomes clear that the films operate within a deliberately simplified framework. Rather than striving for grounded realism or layered psychological complexity, it prioritizes accessibility and tonal consistency. This choice is not accidentally reflect the film's genre and intended audience. As a result, realism is approached in a selective way, applied where necessary to maintain coherence but not pursue as a central goal. In terms of character development, the film follows a streamlined approach. The progression of its central figure is structured to be clear and easily recognizable without introducing significant ambiguity or internal conflict. Development is present, but it is not deeply explored. Instead of gradual nor shift, the film relies on broad, visible changes that align with its overall pacing. This ensures that audience can quickly understand where each character stands at any given moment. However, this clarity comes at the expense of complexity, as the character rarely exhibit contradictions or evolving motivation that would suggest deeper psychological layer. From a reviewer perspective, this type of development functions more as a narrative tool than as an exploration of human behavior. The characters are designed to serve specific role within the film structure, and their growth is aligned with those rules rather than with a detailed internal journey. This approach is effective for maintaining a consistent tone, but it limits the potential for more sophisticated characterization. When considering believability, the film adopts a hybrid standard. On one hand, it exists in a heightened reality that incorporates executed elements and stylized performance. On the other hand, it requires a certain level of emotional credibility to sustain traditional sense, but from internal consistency. As long as the character behave in way that align with the film established tone, their action feel acceptable within that context. The integration of live action and digital elements further complicate this aspect. The presence of highly stylized computer generated figure alongside human actor creates an inherent contrast that challenges conventional realism. However, the film addresses this by emphasizing emotional clarity over physical plausibility. The interactions are designed to feel emotionally coherent if they are not strictly realistic. This allows viewers to suspend disbelief more easily, focusing on the emotional logic rather than the technical construction. In terms of emotional range, the film maintains a control and consistent spectrum. The performance and characterization are calibrated to stay with a more moderate emotional band, avoiding extremes that might disrupt the film's accessibility. Moments of humor, warmth, and mild tension are present, but they do not expand into more intense or complex emotional reality. This restrained range supports the film's family oriented tone, ensuring that the experience remains comfortable for a wide audience. However, this limitation also affects the depth of the character. Without significant variation in emotional expression, character can feel more somewhat uniform in their responses. They react in predictable way that align with their established rate rather than surprising the audience with unexpected emotional shift. This predictability reinforces the film clarity, but it reduces the sense of spontaneity, but that often contribute to deeper characterization. When compared films to films like Detective Pikachu, which occasionally introduce slightly more nuanced emotional beats, the film appears more restrained in its approach. It does not attempt to expand its emotional palette beyond what is necessary to maintain engagement. This make it more consistent but also less varied in terms of emotional impact. Another important factor is the film reliance on archetype. The characters are built around familiar template which help establish immediate recognition but also limit individuality because these traits come with predefined traits that is less room for deviation or complexity. The audience understands the character quickly, but this understanding is based on familiarity rather than discovery. Ultimately, the realism and depth of this film are shaped by this priority. It does not aim to replicate real world behavior or explore intricate emotional dynamics. Instead, it focusing on creating a cohesive and accessible experience where characters function clearly with the film structure. The character development is straightforward, the believability is rooted in consistency rather than realism, and the emotional range remain controlled and predictable. From a critical standpoint, this approach is effective within its intended context, even if it does not push the boundaries of the character depth or realism. A mere look at the production budget of the film places it within a mid-range tier. For contemporary studios, most estimate position the cost between $85 million and $95 million, which is notably give the film reliance on visual effect and hybrid production technique. This range suggests a calculated financial approach substantial enough to achieve technical credibility but restrained compared to the higher end budget often associated with larger scale action franchise. When discussing cost ranges, it is useful to situate the film within the broader market. Many fact-driven family films and action comedy hybrid can exceed 120 and 150 million, particularly when they involve extensive world building or multiple digital character. By contrast, a budget under $100 million indicate tighter financial control and more focused budget reflect a level of caution that studios often applied to projects based on video game properties which historically have shown variable performance in theater. The budget therefore represents a balance between ambition and risk mitigation. In terms of resource allocation, a significant portion of the budget is directed toward visual effect and post-production. The creation of a fully digital central figure requires extensive work across modeling, animation, rendering, and compositioning. Each of these stages involves specialized team and creative process, making them among the most resource-intensive aspect of production. The film relies on integrating this digital element into live action environment further increase complexity as it requires careful coordination between on-set filling and digital enhancement. An additional factor influencing resource allocation is the widely discussed redesign phase that occurs during production. Revising a major visual component at a late stage typically lead to increased cost, particularly in post-production. While the exact figures are not publicly detailed, it is reasonable to assume that this adjustment requires additional time, labor, and computational resources. This suggests that the final budget may reflect not only initial planning but also adaptive decision making in response to audience feedback. Outside of visual effect, spending appeared more control. The use of real world location and relatively modest set construction help limit cost association with physical production design. This approach allows the film to maintain a grounded visual environment without it investing heavily in large scale sets or elaborate artificial worlds. Similarly, the casting strategy indicate a balanced allocation while the films indicate recognizable actor. It does not rely on an ensemble of top tier high salary performer which help keeps overall expenditure within the intended range. From a technical standpoint, the hybrid nature of the film combining live action and CGI require investment in equipment and workflow that support seamless integration. These include motion tracking system, lighting setup, tailor for digital compositioning, and extensive editing process. These elements contribute to the overall budget even if they are less visible than the final on-screen effect. In compared to the similar film Detective Pikachu provide a careful reference point. That film reportedly operated within a budget closer to $150 million, reflecting a broader scope with multiple CGI character and more elaborate world building. In contrast, this film adopts a more contained approach, focusing its resources on a smaller set of technical priorities. On the lower end of the spectrum, some family-oriented comedies with minimal effect operate below $50 million, highlighting how this film occupies a middle ground between simplicity and spectacle. This positioning suggests a strategic intent invest enough to meet audience expectation for visual quality while avoiding the financial exposure associated with higher budget production. It also indicates confidence in the film's ability to deliver return without requiring the scale of a major blockbuster. Overall, the production budget of the film reflects a fragmented allocation of the resources. This constraint demonstrates financial resource. The resource allocation emphasize technical execution, particularly in visual effect, in comparison to the similar film highlight its moderate positioning within the industry. Rather than pursuing maximum scale, the film focuses on efficiency and targeted investment, resulting in a production model that aligns with its both creative goal and its marketed context. The domestic box office performance of the film offer a useful case study in how mid-budget family-oriented film can perform within the North America market. In this context, domestic typically refer to the United States and Canada, a region that remain one of the most influential indicator of a film commercial reception. The movie earned approximately $148 million domestically, a figure that positions it as a strong performer with this category, particularly when measured against its production budget. From a regional perspective, this level of revenue reflects a solid alignment between the film content and the preferences of North American audience. The domestic market often responds favorably to the accessible genre blending film that combine humor, action, recognizable intellectual property. The familiarity of the brand combined with the tone designed for broad appeal likely contributed to consistent attendance across multiple demographics. Importantly, the film release period also play a role, arriving at a first when family-oriented theatrical options were relatively limited. It benefited from reduced direct competition within its target category. Examining audience trend, the film's performance suggests strong engagement from families and younger viewers group that tend to drive repeat viewing and sustain weekend earning. Family films often have a different revenue pattern compared to the adult oriented release. Instead of sharp drop from opening weekends that can remain steadier performance over time due to the word of mouth and group attendance. In this case, the film demonstrated a relatively stable hold at the box office, indicating the audience reception was generally positive enough to encourage continued interest. Another factor influencing domestic performance is the role of pre-release reception. The widely publicized redesign of the central digital character had a noticeable impact on audience awareness and expectation. This situation generated significant online discussion, which in turn translated into heightened curiosity and engagement at the time of release. When it is difficult to qualify the exact financial aspect of this factor, is likely contributed to stronger initial turnout, particularly among viewers who were already familiar with the property. When making comparison to other similar film, Detective Pikachu provide a relevant benchmark. That film earned approximately $144 million domestically, placing it in a similar range despite having a higher production budget. This comparison highlights the efficiency of the film in converting audience interest into revenue. It also suggests that the film's more focused scope and tonal consistency may have contributed to its ability to perform competitively within the same genre space. Additionally, when compared to other video game adaptations released in earlier years, the film domestic earnings represent a notable improvement over the historical average. Many previous entries in this category struggled to achieve sustained success in North America, often due to mixed reception and limited audience appeal. In contrast, this film demonstrates how aligning production style, tone, and marketing with audience expectation can lead to the stronger financial outcome. From an industry perspective, the domestic box office total also reflect the importance of the balancing budget with the revenue potential. When with a production budget estimated under $100 million, the film $148 million domestic gross contributes significantly toward overall profitability even before accounting for international earning. This reinforces the idea that mid-range budget, when compared with broad audience appeal, can yield favorable financial results without requiring blockbuster level performance. Box office The domestic box office performance of the film illustrates a successful alignment between content and market condition. The region of North America provided a receptive audience base. Audience trend favors sustained engagement from families and younger viewers in comparison to similar film highlight its competitive standing with the genre. The result is performance that underscore the value of strategic positioning both in terms of production and release with the contemporary film industry. The international performance of the film provided a useful counterpart to domestic success, illustrating how mid-budget brand-driven film can translate across different global markets. Outside North America, the film earned approximately $170 to $180 million, bringing its worldwide total to over $300 million. While not reaching the scale of major global blockbuster, this level of international revenue reflects a solid and broadly distributed performance across multiple regions. From a regional perspective, the film's international earnings were spread across key markets such as Europe, Latin America, and part of Asia Pacific. European territories contributed significantly, consistently supported by strong familiarity with the brand and the general preferences for accessible, family-oriented entertainment. Latin America also proved to be a receptive market where energetic action comedy films often perform well due to their visual immediacy and minimal reliance on culturally specific humor. In contrast, certain Asian markets show more moderate results, reflecting differing audience preferences and competitive landscape that includes strong local film industries. When examining market reception, the film's tone and structure play a significant role in its global accessibility. Its emphasis on visual clarity, straightforward humor, and fast pacing made it relatively easy to translate across language and cultural contexts. Another important aspect of the international performance is the timing of release. The film's rollout coincided with the early stages of global disruption in 2020, which affected theatrical market unevenly. Some regions experienced shortened theatrical window or reduced attendance capacity, which likely limited the film's overall earning potential. Under more typical circumstances, its international gross might have been higher. This context is important when evaluating the film performance, as it suggests that the reported figure reflect not only audience interest but also the external constraint on distribution and exhibition. The role of marketing impact is particularly notable in the international context. The films benefited from global brand recognition, which reduced the need for highly localized promotional strategy. However, marketing campaigns still adapted to original performances, emphasizing visual spectacle and comedic tone rather than narrative specific. The widely discussed redesign of the central character also had international visibility, generating online engagement that extended beyond North America. This contributed to a broader awareness of the film, helping it maintain a presence in multiple markets despite varying level of competition. The worldwide financial performance of the film can be understood by examining its total gross in relation to its production and distribution costs. The film earned over $300 million globally, combining both domestic and international market. This figure reflects a broad global audience reach, with revenue generated across North America, Europe, and Latin America, and parts of Asia Pacific. With the distribution of earnings varied by region, the overall total indicate consistent engagement rather than reliance on a single dominant market. From a financial standpoint, the concept of break-even extend beyond the reported production budget, which is estimated around 85 to 90 million to determine profitability. Additional factors such as marketing expense, distribution fee, and theater revenue split must be considered. Studios typically retain only a portion of box office earning, often around 50 to 60% domestically and lower percentage internationally, meaning that the film's actual return to the studio is significantly less than the total gross. Taking these variables into account, the break-even point for a film in this budget range is often estimated at roughly 2 to 2.5 times the production budget, placing it near 180 to 120 million dollar. While with a wide worldwide gross exceeding $300 million, the film surpasses threshold, indicating that it achieved a level of profitability under standard industry model. In addition to theatrical earning, revenue streams such as home media sales, streaming rights, and television licensing contribute to the film's overall financial outcome. These secondary channels often play a significant role in extending profitability, particularly for family-oriented films that tend to perform well in home viewing market. Finally, distribution costs, including global marketing campaign and logistical expenses, affect the net outcome but are offset by the film's steady performance across multiple regions. In summary, the financial profile of the film reflects a balanced commercial result where moderate production investment and broad audience appeal combine to achieve sustainable profitability. The profitability of the film can be assessed by comparing its total revenue against its combined production and distribution costs, with the production budget estimated 85 to 90 million dollars and worldwide across 300 million dollars. The film demonstrates a favorable revenue versus cost relationship. However, box office total do not translate directly into studio profit after accounting for theater revenue split, where studios typically receive a reduced percentage, typically from international market. The effective return is lower than the headline gross. Even with these detections, the films appear to have comfortably surpassed this break-even point, which is generally estimated at around 2 to 2.5 times the production budget when marketing and distribution expenses are included. This places the break-even threshold near 180 to 20 million dollar, meaning the film's global earnings exceed this range by a reasonable margin. From this perspective, the theoretical run alone suggests a profitable outcome. Audience reaction to this film was generally positive, particularly when viewed through the lens of demographic, viewer feedback, and overall engagement pattern. The film resonated most strongly with families, younger viewers, and casual moviegoers seeking light entertainment. This demographic alignment played a key role in shaping its perception, as expectations within this group tend to prioritizing enjoyment, clarity, and pacing over complexity. From a demographic standpoint, children and teenagers responded favorably to the film's energetic style and accessible tone. Parents, meanwhile, often view it as a suitable shared experience, something that could entertain without requiring deep attention or raising concern about priorities. Younger adults, especially those familiar with gaming culture, approach the film with a mix of curiosity and caution optimism. Within this group can sometimes be more critical of adaptation. The overall responses suggested a level of acceptance, particularly regarding the film's effort to align with audience expectations. Overall, the reaction to this film can be described as broadly favorable within its target audience, aligned with demographic expectation, combined with generally positive viewers' feedback and consistent engagement, position as a well-received entry in this category. Box office performance of the film plays a significant role in shaping how the film is perceived, particularly when considered alongside critical reception, studio reputation, and genre comparison. Financial success often act as a form of validation, influencing both audience attitude and industry narrative. Even when critical opinions are mixed in terms of critical reception, the film received moderately positive reviews, though not overwhelmingly strong acclaim. However, its solid box office result helped shift the focus away from critical limitation and toward audience approval. When a film performs well commercially, it often reframes critical feedback as less decisive, suggesting that the movie has effectively connected with its intended audience. In this case, the financial outcome reinforced the idea that accessible entertainment value can outweigh the need for critical depth in certain ages. The impact on studio reputation is equally important for a project based on a video game property, an area historically associated with inconsistent results. Strong box office performance signals a level of relatability. It suggests that the studio successfully managed both production and audience expectation, particularly in light of pre-release challenges. This success can enhance audience in similar future projects, positioning the studio as capable of delivering commercially viable adaptation. It also demonstrates responsiveness to audience feedback, which can positively influence how the studio is viewed in long term. When considering who should watch this film, the answer depends largely on audience type, genre preferences, and age group, as the film is clearly designed with a specific viewing experience. Viewers who enjoy action comedy with a playful tone will also find value where the films lean heavily into fast movement, visual clarity, and consistent humor, make it ideal for those who prefer a relaxed and entertaining experience rather than something demanding or thought-provoking. Fans of similar films like Detective Pikachu will likely appreciate its style, as both share a focus on accessible storytelling, visually driven engagement. In terms of age preferences, this is best suited for audiences who enjoy light, family oriented adventure with a comedy catch. Those who appreciate straightforward themes such as belonging and action presenting in a clear and complicated way are more likely to connect with its emotional approach. The film offers a sense of warmth and familiarity rather than depth, which can be appealing for viewers seeking comfort viewing. Although the film may not be satisfy viewers who prefer complement storytelling or deeper emotional resonance, those who look for layered themes, unpredictable narrative, or strong dramatic intensity might find the experience too simple or predictable. Similarly, audience who prefer slow-paced, character-driven cinema may not be connect with its fast, energetic style. Overall, the film is best recommended for a broad but specific audience. Younger viewers, family, and fans of light action comedy is best suitable for those seeking depth or innovation, but highly effective for those looking for an enjoyable, easy to engage cinematic experience.